Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Their Story Matters right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. This is the show with the lovely Chiara Barbera from Italy. Well, she's from Australia, but she's Italian. And we did a show last week on taking a trip to Italy and having the experience of staying with Italian people and going through the experience of making cheese or wine or whatever else they do, like really immersing yourself into the traditions and the experience of Italy. Wonderful show, wonderful destination. If you're looking for something to do that's going to be an experience, listen to that show. It will invite you to take that wondrous journey. But today we're actually going to be talking about the importance of maintaining traditions and celebrating people who continue them. And it is important that we continue them. Yes, things change and we do get more modernized, but we must not forget the roots. We must not forget certain traditions that hold us together. If we forget history, we're inclined to repeat the bad things, not always the good things. So she's on a mission to continue Italian traditions. Assaggio is her heartfelt project dedicated to preserving Italian traditions by bringing warmth, wisdom, and traditions of Italian grandparents, Nonni, to life through engaging online experiences. Chiara was born in Brisbane of 4 Italian grandparents. She was raised on the stories of deep values and defining Italian culture. Her grandparents' courage to leave Italy for a better life laid the foundation for her own path, one that now brings her back to homeland with a mission to give something meaningful in return. More recently, her work has extended to the motherland with Vera Italia, that is their last platform, a platform that offers travelers a chance to engage with Italy's living heritage through in-person encounters with artisans, farmers, and families. And together, these projects form a love letter to her roots, a calling she believes is guided by faith and a legacy that she is determined to honor, preserve, and pass on. Now, I'm just going to apologize right now. I have a cold and horsey and spluttery and coughy here, and Chiara's got a bit of a cold as well. So, forgive us if we both sound a little hoarse here. And let's also just put out a little prayer of gratitude to the Pope, because clearly he was a Pope for the people in today's world. He was truly the definition of what love is. That it isn't conditional. Only if you're Catholic, you'll be loved. Only if you're this, you'll be loved. It was about love as being the core foundation. And may his teachings carry on. Welcome back to the show, love.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just need to give you double amens there, triple amens, infinite amens, because it's so true. And it's funny because that's what Catholicism is all about. It's about love. And I think he was a beautiful embodiment of what Catholicism is. So yes, we pray for the Pope. And also what a way to go on Easter Monday. I thought that was amazing. Got to see at Easter, and he's gone back to, be with be in paradise, be in heaven. So yes, but thank you so much for
No, and also, very apropos to what we're talking about today, because he was a man that brought forth the good traditions and let go of the traditions that segregate or dismiss people. And so he was a great example of the encompassment of what was good and what we need to carry on. And what we need to let go of, which is really what your platform is, isn't it? Embracing the traditions that are deep-rooted, that have fed the soil of growth, right? And how to keep feeding it.
Definitely. And I think it's so humbling when we do kind of pause and give time to, what has brought us this far. Like all of the recipes that we share on Experience Assaggio, they're all testament to a time where we didn't have the luxuries of supermarkets that had ready-made meals, or you didn't have fresh fruit and vegetables all year round, so you had to come up with ways to make sure that you could feed the family all year round and do it in like a cost-effective way as well. So I think it's really beautiful to be able to, like you said, savor those ones that have brought us here, the good ones, and also kind of honor them as we go along. And as you'll see in the table behind you, this is the Assaggio traditions table. And essentially, the invite is for people to experience a taste of Italian culture. And assaggio in Italian means taste. So essentially, it was a taste to experience Italian culture being taught by our grandparents. So and I'm very adamant on grandparents. And I say, if even younger people are like, oh, but like I want to be. I'm like, no. I'm like, you're just not the right generation. I'm sorry. Like we've got to honor the ones that have gone through such incredible life experiences. Like they went through poverty, they went through, some of them
Mm-hmm.
even saw World War II. And I think it's so beautiful to be able to really kind of recognize that, take a moment. And I guess that's what Assaggio is also, is it's an invitation to take a moment to dedicate some time to learn a recipe. As you can see behind me on the table, we've got gardening and we've also got pastimes. And it's a way to be able to just say, what, and my invitation to anyone coming on the website is an invitation to say, what, I'm going to dedicate my Saturday morning or my Saturday evening. I'm going to get some friends together. I'm going to do it by myself. And I'm going to follow along and learn from a nonna, grandmother, or a nonno, grandfather, and learn. And I think that's one of the things that I've loved doing growing up is, Saturday mornings. Sometimes I'd go to my nonna's house and, we would just make something like, we do fresh pasta, or we do pizza or bread. And I think that was one of the most precious things for me, because I really cherished that. I was just so present in the moment. Like I would go there and we would sit and, oh sorry, we would stand and we'd work away, and then we'd do something that she learnt from her mother. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the invitation, is to come along and try. We've got Italian card games. You can learn how to grow tomatoes. You can learn how to make all sorts of recipes. And yeah, basically it's the invitation to join me and all of the other grandparents at the table.
My daughter-in-law is Italian, and her Nonni is in her 90s now. And up to my son and daughter-in-law's wedding last year, she was 90, dancing that floor away, putting everyone to shame. They had to get her to sit down because she was having so much fun. And it's all about, you can see the zest of life. And that's, I think what's very, very Italian is that zest for life. And it's very much done around food, right? The recipe of
Definitely.
life is done around the table, breaking bread, sharing stories. Eat, eat, eat. It's like offensive. Don't go there on a diet. Eat, enjoy the food. It's prepared with love, it's shared with love. And then the stories are shared with love. And they're always very flamboyant. They talk with the hands and the voices go up and down, etc. But it's in a beautiful rhythm of life that when you decide to join into it, it lifts you out of maybe a stoic linear life into something that's just got more to it, you know?
Yes, definitely. It's very much, like you embrace the day, like,
Mm.
you live in the moment. And I guess that's what Assaggio is also trying to share, is that, the idea is like, so basically it's like a library of online experiences. So all of the experiences offer a video that you can follow step by step, feeling that you're literally like learning from the grandparent, or the nonna or the nonno that's teaching you their tradition. And then in addition to that, we've got this it's kind of like a tradition within the traditions. It's a little, if you do a recipe, there's a little recipe card. And essentially the purpose of that is, and I've only recently learnt this, but uh way back when we didn't have internet and we couldn't just simply look up a recipe, the ladies would talk amongst themselves and they would say, oh, I remember that my mum used to make this recipe, but I can't remember like how she did it. And then another senora would say, oh, I know how to make that recipe, like, and they would write it down on these little recipe cards. And it was the way that they would just kind of swap culture and and remind themselves of the recipes. And in my case, my grandparents migrated to Australia, and so among the Italian women in Australia, they would swap these recipe cards, and also here in Italy, like I learned that they would also do the same thing because it would be a traditional recipe that they pass down, or maybe it might be something they tried somewhere else, and then they would like write it down, and then they'd bring it back to their town, and I think it's like a beautiful way to just kind of keep that sharing and and encourage people to bring the tradition out in their own life and share that as well and really be in that moment and enjoy the food and enjoy making it and feel like you're with the grandparents while they're teaching you their traditions. And then in addition to that, we've also got a playlist that will really help you get into the mood and help you feel all of that Italian feeling and get carried away as you cook, as you garden, as you learn the pastimes, or as you listen to some of the stories of our grandparents.
And you do not have to be of Italian descent to enjoy this. This is a way to actually introduce, Italian culture. You can take other cultures, have a different culture every day of the week if you wanted to. You could stretch this thing out, but you're taking Italian. And, a lot of people think that, Italian food is pasta with, sauce out of the jar. But no, don't tell that to an Italian person. That those tomatoes with all the spices and the flavors are cooked over a long period of time, and it has to be just right. And if it isn't, and it's an art, isn't it?
Definitely, I think so. I think it is. I think it's also a way to like express yourself, like,
Mm.
because it's a way to really, disconnect and really focus on what you're bringing to life, and you pour that love into it and you pour that attention into it, and then it's all about, that the concept of then like sharing it and like eating it and sharing that moment of enjoying what you've just created as well.
That is how my son cooks. When he's feeding, he owns a restaurant and he has chefs, but when he cooks, it's made with love and it's presented with love. And you taste the love because that's his love language. Is putting food in front of you. And that's very, very Italian, isn't it? Love language
Yes.
is through the food. Let me cook for you. Let me give you a meal. This is my love expression. And I think as we, especially in a Western society, in a young society as we are today, we're always, quick meals and quick this and quick that and eat it fast and on to the next. And, one of the traditions I love of Italy, and I spoke in the last show of how I gained 10 pounds for 3 weeks in Italy and Rome once, was the
It would have
fact
been
that,
rude not to.
absolutely, God, I don't regret it at all. The food was, and, taking 3 hours over dinner, and the conversation with it, the pause between dishes, and the wine was flowing, but not to get drunk. The
Yeah.
wine was just part of the meal that maybe have elevated the conversation, but never to the point where people got unruly or drunk. It was just zest of life. And I think it's something
Mhm.
that's missing in Western society. We fast food, or even when we go to a restaurant, they play fast music so that you'll eat fast, get out so they can turn the table over, right? And so it's,
Wow.
um, this whole thing about hurry up, and not the
Mm.
conversation. It's something we need to pull back on and find a place where the music is soft and where we can enjoy the meal. And you go for Italian meal, there is no rush to get you out. It's all about you savoring and enjoying the food, and they hover over you. Are you enjoying the food? And that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
It is an experience. Enjoy the experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's why Assaggio was created was because my fear is that we're going to keep running and then eventually we'll get to the finish line, or we'll get to a checkpoint, and we'll be like, oh, like all of the people that had all of the beautiful knowledge that were they did with love and they did with like such presence, like what's going to happen? It's going to disappear because we just keep running and we forget to stop and learn those things. And when I actually launched the website, a lot of people said, "Oh, I wish this was around a couple of years earlier because my grandmother made this recipe and I wish I could remember how she made it, but I can't. Like it's and I've tried to do the recipe, but it just never comes out how she does, and that's why I decided to do the online experiences because I thought it's so important in Italian cooking because it's always there's a quantity, a measurement scale, and it's called QB, which is quanto basta, which is enough. So how much salt, enough. How much
Yeah.
oil, enough. So there's like that's how they quantify things. So we what we do with the grandparents is we get them to show it from start to finish so you can follow along with them, and say now you add some oil, and they'll put some oil. Another measurement is a occhio, which is like by eye. So you
Hmm.
can just tell by eye that it's enough. And obviously if you're reading a recipe, it's really hard to quantify that
Yeah.
and be like, but how much is that? Like, and
Yeah.
unless you don't have like, the la mano, which is like the hand,
Mm.
how are you going to know like, what is enough? So that's kind of why I thought it would be great to show them via videos.
Hmm.
And also to be able to capture exactly how much is like that amount of oil, and really try and capture like the essence of what they're saying. Like, so they say, okay, like now you mix, and like you see how they mix it, and
Hmm.
you see like all of the love and all of the little details that go into it. I remember we learned how to make this traditional Sicilian pasta, which is called macaroni. It's kind of like macaroni in Calabria, they call them fusilli, and it's basically like a long strip of pasta, but you use a needle to roll it. And
Hmm.
historically, this is really cool. Historically, they used the old umbrellas. They would have these like these silver pieces, like think I'm not exactly sure what the material is, but now you can't use them because they don't use the same material as they did, and I don't think they're brown anymore. But anyways, they would get these pieces from the umbrella, and they would make this big beautiful pasta dough, and they would cut up a little piece of pasta, and then they would like roll it, and then it would like form this long kind of roll, but it would kind of be hollow in the middle. So then when you have the sugo, like the sauce, it's like because it sucks it all in, and it's just like it's beautiful. So my great aunt who features on the website is Nonna Sarina. She does this recipe called macaroni, and it's so cool because like we were watching I was watching her and I was learning with her, and I think that's the fun part because as I learn I kind of try and bring people with me. And so like the questions that I have, like, I'm sure someone else will have them
Hmm.
as well. And we're going through and we're doing this, and I realized that every single time she does the same amount of rolls without even her probably even realizing. So I
Hmm.
counted them. I was like, I'm gonna make a mental note of this. And I realized that she did it. So it's really cool because like you pick up all these bits and pieces, and you can kind of learn and adapt as you go along as well. And I think like that's the cool part about it, is because I was so passionate about learning about these recipes and saving these
Hmm.
recipes, that then I was like, okay, well, while I'm learning them, why not share this, and why not
Exactly.
create like a platform about this, and let's document them, and like let's make sure that we've got this library, so then when the time comes in 100 years when we can't pick up the phone and say, hey, like how did you
Yeah.
make that recipe again, it's really good, like we've got them, and we can remember them. And me being far away from them in Italy, because I come back and forwards from Australia and Italy, like without realizing when I created this, it's a way for me to kind of feel like I'm still with them. And as I'm
Yeah.
editing them, it just gives me so much like joy because I feel like I'm with them. And then to be able to share that is just like another, cherry on top. And then we've got the model that it is like payment. So it's a small fee, it's $10.99 Australian a month, which is about $6 US, $5 US, depending on the exchange rate. And the pure reason is because like we want to help the mission to continue, and also because I was very adamant of the fact that like this is my these are the nonnies that I've been able
Hmm.
to collect, and it's open to all nonnies. So if someone has an Italian grandmother or grandfather out there to contribute their recipes, they're so welcome. But I guess the point is like we also need to give value because there's so much
Yes.
out there now, and people just dump so much stuff onto the internet, which is like amazing because we've got so much technology at the click of a button. But for me, I really wanted to attract people that realize the value of it and realize that like even by paying just a small fee, like you're valuing the fact that these people are sharing their hearts with you and they're sharing their
Yeah.
stories with you. And there's moments in there where some of the nonni get emotional because they'll remember their parents, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about like how they learned the recipe, and then they'll start reminiscing. And I think it's just really important to honor that as well, and to keep it a little bit protected, and offer it to people that value that and
You
want to be part of the mission.
respect it, and it's the price of a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah,
So, and now you've got a
exactly.
recipe for life, and you can, experiment with that recipe and introduce it to your friends, and then you can, and it's the story at the table. of how you got the
Exactly.
recipe. And then it opens up conversation. Exactly. It opens up
Yeah.
conversation. Well, what's our heritage?
Mm.
I need to ask my grandmother for recipes. And so it
Yes.
takes the conversation further. When you talked about enough, my mother was, we always say, well, how much do you put in of this? You put a dash of this and a smidgen of that. Right. And so I kind of
I
wish
love
that,
that.
we had, video cameras were big, huge things back when she was alive and when we were with her. But she was the um, sauce, sauces and soups and stews. I mean, that was her thing, flavor, right?
Wow.
Beautiful soups. My son loves soups to this day. He's always a soup guy, and wonderful sauces. And for her, it was always by the eye. Well, a dash of this and a smidgen of that, and an eye of that, and kind of almost sounds like a toad and a this and a that in the pot. But
Literally.
you had to pay attention to watch what she was making, and but it was always made with love, but also very much affected by the war, where her larder always had to be full, right? She
Mm.
did not like leftovers. I think it's just because they didn't really have proper fridges to keep things fresh in
Yeah,
those days. Um, and there wasn't a thing of making a lot and freezing it because they really weren't, it was an ice box. It wasn't very, the freezers.
of course.
And so it was very much about, going to the local market and buying what you needed, and cook per day for every day for what you wanted. So
Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, we always enjoyed grandma's cooking, definitely. And
definitely. They do it with such love.
we do go to convenience today, and I think that it's, when we can cook things from scratch, and we put the time in it. My daughter now is pregnant with her third, but has two others. The one is four, so he gets into the kitchen and she puts an apron on him on the stool and he'll stir something,
How
and
cute.
it's just getting into, feeling he's a part of the kitchen. And I think that's something that's very important. And then to put, this was a recipe from your grandmother or your great grandmother, or this
Hmm.
recipe's been around for a very long time. And then that's a way of actually introducing history in there
Yeah,
and all traditions in there. What sparks the conversation, that is the inquiry to know more? And I think it's so important to spark those conversations, to know what has been, because we take what was good from that past and we incorporate it
yeah.
into our present and bring it into our future.
Definitely. It's so funny you say that this is so like timely and topical. Yesterday, so obviously, Assaggio was born to document the traditions of my grandparents because I wanted to set out on the mission to save Italian traditions. And so I thought, well, before I do that, I need to save my own family traditions because otherwise it will be a crying shame. And I'll be a little
Yes.
bit of a hypocrite as well. So I was like, I need to do Assaggio. So then that way we've got my nonnies recipes and we've got other nonnies recipes and we can keep growing it as we go. But obviously now I'm in Italy and we're focusing on in-person experiences as well to be able to kind of encourage the people that are bringing forward the tradition. So like the people that continue to make cheese, as you said, make wine, make baskets, like all of those beautiful little traditions that I believe create the Italian culture and add,
Mm.
add life to the Italian culture. And yesterday we were with a new we call them culture creators on the website of Vera Italia, and basically, I call them culture creators because they are the people who create the Italian culture. And without them, it wouldn't be as colorful and lively
Mm.
as it's known and loved all throughout the world. And yesterday we went to go meet with a new one who, speaking of traditions, he sells like all of the like the preserved food. So like he
Mm.
does olives, he does chilies, he does
Peppers.
jams, marmalades, peppers, all those kind of
Mm.
things. Yeah. So he just like he does all of the we call them sotto olio, which is literally translated as under oil, and it was a form
Mm.
of preserving the fresh produce. So we went to him yesterday And he got us to try some stuff, and he had like these olives, and it was like olives that you would eat like from like a grandmother, like that
Mm,
homemade. And it was so amazing that he was able to do that on like a commercial level, and then sell it, and had beautiful packaging and everything. And it was like, it was so good. And he is in a town called Bonvicino. So the in-person experiences start in northern Calabria, which is a town that is just so unknown. And basically we're doing all the little towns around a town called Scalè. And we went to this town called Bonvicino, and the man brought us to the local museum. And it was amazing. Like, just you literally felt like you could touch history,
mm,
and
mm,
going back to that appreciation. But talking about the recipe, so one of the items in the museum is like a big picture of this one of the first ever Italian cookbooks. It was from the 1850s, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like it's been around for a long time. And he was saying one of the first recipes in this book was with pasta with tomatoes. Like, literally, like, so what
mm,
we do is we have this very simple recipe, and you get fresh tomatoes, and you literally just make like a sauce out of that, and you put the pasta in, and it's so simple. And he was saying that this book was later revised by the author, because he was documenting all kinds of like home style like cooking, like just really easy kind of like
mm.
home style things that you can just prepare at home. And he said this book was revisited, and he says the most amazing thing is when the author went to revisit the book, he looked at the recipe, and he was kind of like, oh, I'll just keep it, because it's like, it's just simple. But the most fascinating thing is that recipe is probably one of the most famous, well, like most used recipes
Mm.
in like all of Italy, because before, tomatoes weren't in the north, and well, they were rare, and it was more of a southern thing. But like, it's just so amazing that that has just stood the test of time. And like, if you like think of us, like, what's a recipe that maybe now we take for granted, and then like, in hundreds of years we'll be like, oh,
Yes.
like, that is such a significant recipe that every single person makes. Like, it's just so cool to really stop and reflect, and be like, what's the story behind this recipe, and ask those questions.
How far back does it go? And that's
Yeah,
the thing, that's what we don't realize. We again take things for granted. We're in the now, which, yes, I'm all about being present, but it's also, taking the nuggets, from the past. And it's like, bread, for instance. I mean, Italian bread is
mm,
absolutely gorgeous, and the pastries, etc. Um, and it's like, how far back does bread go? And when you think about pasta, where did it come from? Marco Polo, bringing it over from
mm,
China, right? And
yeah.
introducing pasta in there. When we choose to look at the history of where our food stemmed from, where the recipe stemmed from, again, it opens up so much more to the conversation. And we're creative of our own dishes today that hopefully will become those traditions, for our grandchildren down the road. And I think it's important
Definitely.
that we stop doing everything as fast food or convenient food. The way we eat, we don't sit around the table. It is about that conversation. It is about that food. It takes hours to make something, and it could be gobbled down in 5 minutes. And it's like, no, savor it, savor it, please.
And
And
there is nothing better than the smell of when you actually do
yeah,
put yourself in the kitchen, like fresh bread. Oh, we've got Nonna Maria on the website, who teaches fresh bread, and like, oh my gosh, like,
I
and
know.
she talks about the fact that she was 13 or 12 when she first started making bread. And she was saying that she just did it because she wanted to help her mom out, and then she got good at it, and then she really loved it. And then that was then evolved, because they had quite a numerous family, and it was post-war for them as well, so they weren't very well off. And it came out of the fact that they needed to make bread for the family.
Yes.
And then they're Sicilian originally. And then they created this amazing recipe that we still make today, and it's called pane gonzato, and it's basically like seasoned bread, I guess you could call it. And what you do is you bake the bread, and like, just the smell, even though it takes like hours to rise and all of that, and like, just the smell that comes out of it. And then you fill it with like with this filling, and you put like cheese and parsley, and it's a very
Mm.
traditional Sicilian recipe, and olives. and then you close it, and then you put it in the oven while it's like still hot, and you just kind of like let it sit for a little bit. Then you take it out, and then you get it, and it's like all like
Mm,
melted, and like it's just so good. But it's like fresh as well, and it's like it's just amazing. Like because you reflect back and you think about like, oh my gosh, like that came from something so simple, which is like
yeah.
literally just flour, water, and a bit of
Yes.
yeast. And then they have another recipe. So Nonna Maria is my grandmother's sister. So Nonna Carmelina. And what she does is she does a recipe that they used to make with their family. And we made this literally the other day as well. It's so cool. So my dad's first cousin, his daughters were like, I want to learn this recipe. And like it's so beautiful because we share a great grandmother together. So, the fact that I can now say, well, look, I can teach you our great grandmother's
Mm-hmm.
recipe. What she would do is she would boil rice because obviously sugar was like so expensive when
Mm-hmm.
after post-war, and buying sweet treats was just like unaffordable because they couldn't
Right.
afford to go to the bakery. So what my great grandmother used to do is she would boil rice, and she would make it into like this mixture, and then she would fry it, and then she would toss it in sugar and cinnamon at the end. So they're kind of like little donuts, and that was like their family's treat because they couldn't afford it. And it's just so cool because we were reflecting on this as well, like the fact that the actual recipe itself, when you cook the rice, you actually add salt, you don't add sugar. And we were
Mm,
just saying, like, of course, like they wouldn't have wanted to waste any sugar, so
mm,
it wasn't actually in the mixture. It was
mm.
on the outside because they couldn't afford to put it into the mixture, and then on the outside as well. So it's just like it's so amazing to like you just have that real appreciation of like how difficult times were and how creative they were, like to
Well,
really
that's
just
the point. And then they turn out to be, something that becomes so delicious and easy and cheap to make with less, product. Talking about the bread, um, my mum didn't make bread, but we had somebody that used to come and work at the house. And twice a week, she would make bread for us. And we would sit there as it came out of the oven. It would be a crusty loaf. And then, we just let it sit for, are we ready? Are we ready? We've got the butter on our knives. And then you'd hear the knife as it goes down on the outside crust with the fluffy bread on the inside. We'd take a doorstep of it and slather it with butter. And it was this hot, beautiful, crusty loaf that we absolutely adored. And,
hmm
and it was just the memories of that. I'm 70, I'm going back 66 years that I can remember that, right? Being a child
That's
with the butter
amazing.
knife. And of course we're very pastry in orientated in England. So a lot of pastry, you're going to see their pies and things like that, and Cornish pasties, etc. But it's again that the convenience of making something with pastry, a pie, a Cornish pasty, is something that the workman can take in a little bag to work with them. All of that comes from convenience and necessity. And, that very often is where the most creative stuff comes about.
Absolutely. It's amazing. And I think one of the coolest things as well is that, you've made it yourself. Like,
Yes.
we've got the gardening experience with Nonno Franco, and he teaches how to grow tomatoes. And then Nonna Sarina teaches a recipe, which is his wife, on how to like preserve those tomatoes. And like it's so cool because like you go from like the plant to like the eating of them. And it's really amazing because like so the preserving of the tomatoes, you do it with green tomatoes. And you can't buy green tomatoes in Australia. It's very rare to find. So you have to like grow it yourself, and it's just so cool to see the whole process as well. And yeah, it's amazing.
And if out of that, we get bored with the same old food. And out of that kind of recipe and then trying something else and exploring, it's like all of a sudden your taste buds are going, thank you, like,
Yeah,
gosh,
it's an
this is,
adventure.
it is an adventure, and food is an adventure. And we're in times right now where food expenses have gone up so much, around the world, through opulence, really, rather than anything
Mm,
else. And it's, pleasures that we would buy ourselves, we can't buy anymore because, the costs have gone up too high. Well, how do we recreate those at home? How do we take those lessons from people that were, post-war in the war? What did they do to create something? Um,
yeah.
and how do we incorporate that now and kind of be creative ourselves,
Definitely.
right? So it's an
Definitely.
invitation to, okay, I can't afford to go out and buy that pastry for $5 for a little pastry. How do I make that at home? How do I make that bread at home? How do I make, these I mean, I love sun-dried tomatoes, and
Ooh,
I love them in bread. I love them in pasta. I love them in many things. They just bring such a real rich flavor, and you don't need a lot because it's very strong. But I love some. I'm not a big olive person. I don't mind olive oil and olive
that's
stuff, but
okay.
I'm not an olive person, unfortunately.
It's the olive theory. You have people that like olives and the people
Yeah.
that don't like olives. So then the people that like olives can eat olives.
Exactly. And I love olive oil and things like this. And if it's on a pizza or something or whatever, it's different. But it's not, my raw
Mhm.
go-to. Um, Give me a pickled onion. You know, I'm probably more into that. But it's still be willing to explore. And I think, especially when we look at young societies like Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, America, we're still young nations. And
Hmm.
if we're willing to embrace those traditions and as a family prepare it together and kind of,
Yeah.
okay, let's set the table like Italians would. And, it's an Italian night, do what you
Yeah.
think Italians would wear, or whatever the case. Make fun, have
Yeah.
fun with it. And
Have
it's
an
a wonderful
experience.
way, an experience. And this is the Italian culture you're capturing, but maybe somebody's got French or something there and there. Keep your own traditions. Go to your own grandparents. Look up, what their traditions are as well. Because what you started here is something that really can go way beyond just Italy. This is your
Definitely.
forte. This is obviously your passion, but it's like all these traditions are here for a reason. They're a good foundation. They're a good baseline structure in which to build from. And,
Hmm.
I mean, with my mother, with a dash of this and a smidgen of that, you never got the same recipe as she made because of the dash and the smidgen. But you went with, oh, that looks right, or that tastes right. And you did your own version of it,
Hmm.
right? So,
That
but
feeling.
that feeling, and ended up with something maybe not quite like she has. Like she would make broccoli cheese soup with Stilton cheese, very, very
Wow.
rich. And it's hard to get Stilton cheese over here. Um, so we make it with a different cheese, but that Stilton cheese is what made it so rich and
Hmm.
delicious. And she added sherry to her onion soup, or mushroom soup, brandy to a mushroom soup, and all of these things. In fact, I actually remember one time she and I would do a lot of parties, either dinner parties or parties together after my dad died because I was still around. And we made this chocolate cake and it crumbled. Um, and so what do we do with it? So we put it in a mold, like a bunting pan with the hole in the middle. And she put sherry in it and cherries in it and a couple of other liqueurs. I can't remember. And she put it in the fridge and then turned it upside down and filled it with cream with more cherries on top, and it was delicious. So on my 16th birthday, I had a sit down 6 course dinner meal for my friends, and
I
I
love
made
that.
and it took me a couple of days to make everything, right? And I made that cake, but when I dished it up, he said, "Oh, I want a bigger slice than that." I said, "Taste it first," because I'd got a little heavy on the liqueur, but it was just delicious. But that came out of a mistake, and it's like, don't get all flustered if a mistake happens.
No.
This is an invitation to recreate.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because one of our I call them amici, so they're the people that have joined us on the Assaggio traditions table. She originally, when she met me, she was like, "Oh, I have had this dream for so long to recreate like an Italian family lunch." She's like, "I want to make
Mm.
meatballs and sauce and pasta," and I was like, "Oh, amazing!" She's like, "I've been waiting to meet you," and so what she did was she joined the she joined us on the Assaggio traditions table and she found the sauce and meatballs recipe and she got her family together one Sunday and she got her boys and they helped her in the kitchen and they were cooking and they were cooking away and then they all sat down together and they all ate the meal just as she imagined. And it was amazing to see. But that's what she said. She said, they were following the recipe. And obviously, like, it's designed that you can follow along step by step.
Mm.
But what she highlighted and what I imagined is that, my nonna is a professional. So, like, she's quick. It's like and so she said at one point they kind of had lost their way. And so her son was like, let's just throw everything into the pot and just see what happens. And so she said it was so much fun because they did it. And then they're like, okay, well, now next time we kind of like know the way. So we can adjust next time. So it's funny you say that because that was literally her experience is that she wanted to create that like that tradition, that Italian kind of Sunday lunch tradition. And through Assaggio, she was able to bring her family in and they were all able to kind of, work on the recipe experience together. And yeah, it was really cool to hear.
Kind of wonder when you look at soups like minestrone,
Yeah.
how do certain recipes come about? Was it, oh, I put too much in, or I've got this, I'm just going to throw in and see what happens. And then it becomes a recipe because everybody likes it. You look
Yeah.
at some dishes and say, but what are the origins of this dish? How did it come
Mm,
about? Right.
yeah.
And, how many of that came about from just someone experimenting or had a mistake?
Yep. Well, there's a few legends about panettone, and that was supposed to be a mistake as well. And then look at the success. It's on every Italian's table, and not even Italian, but a lot
Yeah.
of people's tables at Christmas time. So,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
definitely. You do wonder how they originated.
And I think that's, again, kind of we have chat and we have Google and we have this and that. It's lovely to see the people doing the recipes, but you can kind of ask them, well, what are the origins of this? Just I'm all about ask questions, be inquisitive,
Yeah.
be wondrous. That's very much my platform. And it's if we can teach our children to be wondrous and inquiring and not just status quo, and be willing to kind of go on that adventure and then say, okay, this is how they did. What would you do? What would you do differently? And maybe they want to add something themselves. I mean, I've made mistakes and I've got this huge pot of curry. It's literally flaming. How do I cool it down? Because it's just going to set everyone on fire. And I thought, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll try some milk in it. And I put milk in it and it just calmed it right down, right?
Yeah,
Took
it's
away the
amazing.
fire from it. And it's like sometimes trust those instincts, that little
Mm,
thought that comes to your mind. And you're like, if you start, well, will it make sense? Will it do this? Will it do that? You're not trusting the instinct. But if the instinct comes up, well, maybe if I try this. And you don't know. And it's that willingness to try. I think that's important.
definitely. A good friend of mine sent me like a joke about this, and she says, I don't know, I don't follow recipes. I just add until my ancestors tell me to stop. And it's like that feeling that you get, and you're just like, okay, like I think that, it's like that intuition. Yeah. But I think that's why it's also so important to stop now because like, we're running. And so like it's actually that time to like tune into your instinct and like
Yes.
take that time to be present and like feel things and create things and take that moment to stop.
Even a chef who uses the same recipe all the time, all the way through, it's stop and taste, stop and taste. Nope, needs a dash more of this or a dash more of that. And you may have used the same dashes from last time, but this time you need a dash more, right? And
Hmm.
it's like you've got to taste your food as it cooks, right? You've got to immerse yourself into that experience so then when you're putting it on the table. Now, I do know when it comes to baking a cake and this and that, there's certain recipes you do need to follow more or less to the T. Otherwise, you're not going to get the same rise of this or that. You can't leave this out, or bread can't leave yeast out. It's things that just make sense. But there's always, okay, but I can change the flavor of it. I could add this, I can add that. And it's that you
Mm,
can still be creative even with the baseline.
absolutely. No, I definitely agree. And I think it's nice learning from people that have had so much experience too.
Yes. Yeah. And the mama and the grandma that has cooked for her family for years, and again, love language, right? Putting the food on the table. It's not a frozen meal put in the microwave and thrown on the table. It's food that's being cooked with love. And
Yeah.
it is nourishment for the heart, the soul, the spirit, as well as the body. right?
Hmm.
It is invitation to how is your day gone?
Yeah.
For the conversation, and it's gratification, not just for the tummies, but for the people who know that I've cooked a meal that has fed my family well.
Mm.
And so it's a good feeling all round.
It's like meatballs. Like I say, it's like a hug to your stomach.
Yeah. On a different side of this game, my daughter and her husband are completely vegan. And
Oh,
so it's the experiment with the vegan food. And a lot of people think vegan is lettuce, leaf, and chickpeas. And there are so many incredible recipes. And my grandson's second birthday party is coming up, and I won um, 2 dozen vegan muffins, which this gentleman has been bringing to our meetings, and they get devoured, not a crumb left. And nobody gives
wow.
it, this is vegan, this is vegan. And I think that's another thing is like people go, oh, maybe Italian is too meaty. No, you can change things up.
It's actually
You,
quite vegetarian.
yes, it
It's
is.
very like, vegetarian
Yeah.
based. I mean, there is a lot of meat too, if that's what you like, but it's very vegetarian.
Yeah, exactly. And also there are kind of meat substitutes, and there's tofu,
Mm,
and there's all sorts of things that you can use.
absolutely.
I did a show with a gentleman recently of what to stock in your larder for, your vegan ingredients in order to experiment with the vegan food. And I think it doesn't matter. Well, we ate a lot of meat, so I can't follow those traditions because of the meat. No, substitute the meat for something else,
Mm,
right? That's
yeah,
There's always something different that you can make. And I think that's just be open-minded, because what's the baseline? In Italy, it's sauce, right?
yeah.
Sauce is the baseline. And what you put in that sauce, what you put that sauce over. How I was introduced to Italian food was spaghetti bolognese, right? And
Hmm.
that's what we used to eat a great deal of. Um, I don't eat the meat anymore, but I can still make the bolognese actually with soy meat. And I've made it for people where they don't,
Mushrooms.
yeah, mushrooms. Oh, mushrooms, fantastic texture and
Hmm.
replacement for meat. And, people don't know that they're not eating meat. So it's just be versatile. If there's an ingredient you can't eat, well, don't go, well, I can't follow that recipe. No, substitute it for something else,
Hmm.
right? It's just like
Absolutely.
the traditions are there for you to follow to get the experience, but also create your own experience in it as you go.
Absolutely. And it's all about making that time and you're
Yeah.
saying, I'm going to create a fun moment for myself and take that time.
And I think that's kind of the common denominator of everything here, time. When you
Hmm.
invest time in something, the results are always going to be so much more fruitful, right?
Absolutely.
The time in the jarring. We're jarring the fresh fruits and vegetables, making jam. You know, Nowadays a lot of people freeze dries their berries and this and that, and they can put them in the freezer. But go picking in the summer. Go and get
Mm,
all the beautiful foods and then either jar them or freeze them or whatever the case is. And then you got those ingredients through the winter. That's what it's all about.
definitely.
And then there's of course some wonderful winter vegetables, the squashes and things like that. And that is another wonderful experiment to make with it. But it's take the time, even if
Yeah.
it's not every day of the weekend, take the time to have
Yeah.
one good long meal that maybe as a family you've cooked and have an experience with it.
Totally agree. And it's like it's beautiful as well because it makes you live like, the different seasons in
Yeah.
in different parts of the year. Like the other night, we were at a dinner party and they opened up a bottle of sauce, like the tomato sauce that we'd made, passata we call it. And they opened up and I was like, "Oh, what a beautiful smell of basil." And they're like, "This is the one we made in summer." And literally like it was just this like big like
Yeah.
waft of like
Yeah.
summer basil, like that just had that
Hmm.
beautiful rich flavor, and then you could smell the tomatoes, and you were eating it, and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's just it's unreal.
And that's the beauty of the jarring. It lasts a long
Hmm.
time, right? If
Yes.
you do things, preserve them properly, they'll last a long time on your shelf there. And yes, that whole experience of smelling something that's out of season is a treat,
Mm.
right? It is
Yeah,
a
it
treat.
is.
And
Yeah,
it's
it's like a little
possible. But
present.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. But then eating seasonally. especially
Yes.
summertime with all the wonderful stuff out there. And again, as you said, like certain, Italy is a big country, and different types of Italian food are in different parts, right? So,
Mm.
and that's another thing of having the recipes of people from Sicily, northern and southern, and this or that, and it's like, how are the recipes different? Let's try them out and see how their pasta sauce compares to the other pasta sauce. And again,
Hmm.
look at the history, go into it. Why are these different? Why don't they grow tomatoes? Why can't they? This, that, etc. Right? It's like, be inquiring. That means you're feeding the mind, the heart, the soul, the spirit, and the tummy at the same time.
I love it. Yes, exactly.
And kind of watching, a grandmother or a mother, whatever, cook, as you said, you've probably got subtitles underneath there for them,
Yes,
right? So, and you just watch them, and even with the cooking, it's again rhythmical, and everything about it is like, it's like watching a performance, isn't it?
definitely.
And it's
Definitely.
like, it's fun, and it'll uplift you, and you take notes and you go, okay, oh, you have it on while you're following along. I never, you can always pause the recipe if she's gone too fast. All right.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it.
Yes, and rewind, but make it an experience for you, or make it an experience for the family, right?
Mhm.
So just
Or like
immerse
have a
yourself into
fun
it.
date night or girls'
Yeah,
night or boys' night or
yes,
whatever, like family night. It's
yes.
fun.
Date
It's that's
night.
what it's been designed to do is like, and we've also got some tips on how to get the most out of your experiences, which it literally guarantees you a bit of fun. So make an event out of it. And it might even just be for you, like just to do some fun activity, like have some me time and have a bit of fun with it.
I remember saying to my son many years ago, because he loved cooking, I said, you need to start a YouTube channel where you create dishes for men to cook for their girlfriends,
Oh,
right? And, something that they can show them, I've prepared this for you. And this is the date night. And you didn't do it. And I still think it's a great opportunity,
I think so too.
and it's a great opportunity for the men to look at these recipes and create it for their loved ones, right?
Definitely.
And because it isn't difficult. It's not like some cuisine, which is very intricate and, can be very difficult. It's not difficult to do when you get into the rhythm of it and you have all the right ingredients. But for someone to know that you have taken the time to learn the recipe, to cook it for them, and to
Hmm.
share it with love is so much better than just going to a restaurant.
Absolutely. Yeah, it shows you care. We have another amico on the table, and on the Assaggio table, and he requested a simple recipe, and we have Nonno Sebastiano. So any man out there watching this is not a great cook, wants to learn, he can follow along with Nonno Sebastiano, and he teaches a recipe with pasta, which is with olive oil, garlic and peppers, and yeah, and it's like super easy and it's like so beautiful, and he makes it when his wife's out and he doesn't know what to make. So it's nice, like it's a good way to kind of dip your toe into the water, and yes, I think that's a great idea.
It becomes supportive, which is, it's so great. And it's like, the cooking isn't just for the woman in the house. My son is the cook because, again, of course, he loves, preparing that food with love. Um, and I think that, the thing is, it used to be, it was the women's tradition. There are, again, some traditions we need to change. If the man loves the cooking, or if the woman has a job, well, then you share it. But what you can do at the weekend is look at all these recipes. Okay, I'm going to cook this on this day, you cook that on that day, right? And or even prepare the sauces together at the
Yep,
weekend, so you got them
absolutely.
ready for the week when you're busy. There's so many invites here of cohesiveness and coming together to prepare, and at the same time learning about the culture, which is so
Hmm.
important.
Yeah, and hanging
Traditions.
out with Nonni. Who doesn't
Yeah,
want to hang out with Nonni?
exactly, exactly. And as a grandmother, and I've got a book going to be coming out. I'm gathering authors right now, Our Forgotten Seniors, because again, the Western society is very much about throw seniors away. you're old, decrepit, we don't need you anymore. And it's like you have no idea what wisdom you're throwing away or what
Mm,
skills and aptitudes that you could learn from. And I think it's when we immerse in our grandparents and we listen to their stories and their traditions and whatever way they wish to share it, there is so much to learn as a youngster that you can incorporate into your life. And one great big huge thing of that is a sense of value.
yes, definitely. I think that's also one of the most beautiful things is that Assaggio preaches is that we want to shine a spotlight on these nonni that are a bit forgotten and
Yes.
that are a bit discounted. And I think the most beautiful thing is when someone does one of the experiences on Assaggio and then they write to us and then I tell the nonna or the nonno that someone
Yeah.
has watched their recipe or someone's watched their video or someone's done gardening, and it's just like they just light up and it's so beautiful. And I one of them was my grandmother has a Sicilian dish called caponata, which is basically made with peppers and eggplants.
Love
And
eggplant.
it's very good.
Mm.
And someone made that and she said, now it's become like a family favorite and she makes it all the time. And I told my grandmother that and she was like, oh my goodness. Like, and it's so beautiful because yeah, it is going back to that, and it's really like honoring the fact that they have so much that they can share with us and they're
Yes,
so resourceful and they've come through so many different life experiences. And I think that it's also important to celebrate them and shine a light on them and make them feel special and important because they are.
they are very much so. A number of years ago, I did a show with somebody, the clairvoyant gourmet. And as a clairvoyant, and she said she didn't ask for this, it was just chosen to her. People who had passed over would give her recipes
Oh,
and she would cook them. And she said some of the recipes were absolutely bizarre. She didn't think they would come out nice at all, but all of the dishes came out quite extraordinary. And so she kind
wow.
of became the channeler for these recipes from beyond, right? So, but
Wow.
not everybody can do that. So you want to get the
No.
recipes while they're still alive, folks. But yeah, but
Yes,
I found that
exactly.
incredibly in and also talking about another thing that she did, which is really important and very based in Italian food, is the foods that line up with our chakras and like aubergine and peppers and tomatoes, etc. They line up with our chakra colors. And if we're
Mm.
craving a particular color food, it is that particular part of our chakra needs to be supported, right? So
Wow.
intriguing,
That's
and Italian
fascinating.
food is very colorful, right?
Yes,
So it is feeding those chakras, it is feeding the soul. And that's what you want.
definitely.
The body can be fed by anything, but you want people to come away. As I said in the last show, it's 50 years ago, I was in Italy. And I still remember this dish from here, that dish from there, that dish from there, and the whole experience. And so it's really, really, you know,
It's pretty special.
it is because it stays with you. It really does.
Mm.
And this is an experience without having to leave your own kitchen,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You
You
can
can
bring Italy to you.
bring Italy to you. You can experience it on your own with a loved one, with the family, and you can immerse yourself into the experience, the culture, and the questions, right? Which
Hmm.
is, again, let that go deeper. Let that
Hmm.
be, be something, not just a great dish, but something
Yeah.
you learned, which again, once you've learned something, you can't unlearn it. And I think once you learn something, you want to know more.
Yeah. Yep. This is true.
So let's recap the Viera Italia um, on the journey. If people want to go to Italy and experience the true Italian experience, let's recap that show and recap the experience there, how it's done, and then also
Absolutely.
how this one, how the people can participate in this one.
Absolutely. So, Vera Italia is the evolution of experience assaggio. Assaggio means taste in Italy, so in Italian. So, basically, you're getting a taste of Italy and Italian culture through grandparents teaching you their traditions. And then we have Vera Italia, which is the in-person experiences, so VERA. And basically, Vera Italia is all about offering you in-person experiences, connecting you with local Italians in places that are very, off the beaten track, not well known. And it's a way to really kind of make a bit of an impact and sustain the local communities and encourage the local people to continue the traditions through an experience. So we're trying to save traditions one experience at a time.
Exactly.
Basically that basically that means you come onto our website. There's like a big library of experiences, or you can meet the people that are offering the experiences, and you just have a look through and see what you like, and then come visit. And there's all these people here that are absolutely so exciting to so excited to share their stories and their traditions, and it's really like a practical way to really feel that culture and really have that experience, that real authentic experience.
Immersing yourself into the
Hmm.
experience, which is so important. And I think that's, excuse me, folks, I mean, that's so important. It's like, not the tourist bus that goes here and goes there, and you kind of feel, well, that was pretty, but what was the experience? It's about,
Yes.
breaking bread at the table. And I suppose,
Yeah.
people will say, well, what about the language? Well, you can get an app that can translate, and plus you have translators as well.
We
So
have translators.
don't let there be a language barrier, being
No.
the problem. Go and experience it. Italy is my favorite European country. I
Hmm.
absolutely loved it. Just the zest for life, and
Yes. And
the encompassing of wanting to please you and invite you in. It's just beautiful.
I think that's the beauty of this is because vera means true in Italian. It's like the true Italy, and it's literally
Mm.
that. It's like just immersing yourself into their day-to-day kind of culture and learning a bit of like, what makes the Italian people, what's made them to be who they are.
Now imagine if you went and perfected a recipe that you watched a nonno do, and then you go stay with Italian family and cook for them.
Yeah,
Right.
that'd be fun.
Well, that'd be
Definitely.
cool. Or, just say, I want to cook with you
Yeah.
and have that experience. But if you really want a taste of a culture, go immerse yourself into the culture, because that
Yes.
experience is something that you will never forget. It will be with you for life. It would also set you up with your exploration of what else is out there. So,
Absolutely.
so please listen to the other show where we talk about Vera Italia more in depth. And of course, this one about, I mean, this one you don't have to leave, your couch, so to speak. It's all done
Hmm.
online, um, but it's bringing Italy to you, and the experience that you can give yourself, you can give your loved ones, give your family. You're having a dinner party, you want to impress people, right? And it's like, oh, this is delicious. Where'd you get the recipe? Well, I watched Nonna make this, and open it up and share the experience. And so,
Absolutely.
you know.
Or you can keep it as your little secret and be like, oh, a nonna taught me. Up to you.
But it's broadening those horizons, broadening that
Definitely.
exploration. I think one of the things wrong with humanity is we become so kind of insular, and me, myself, and I, and not realizing we're an us and a we, and that we're meant to experience each other's lives and cultures, because that's what really makes us so enriched and abundant. And so be willing to, and there is no age barrier, whether you're young or you're
Mhm.
older. If there's no age barrier to doing this, and you can choose with the very experience which one you want to experience, and maybe you want to experience two or three of them at the same
Yeah.
time. It's up to you. But this experience is literally brought to your computer or your tablet in the kitchen while you cook, along with
Yeah.
Nona, and it's bringing that experience to you. So both of them brilliantly concepted. I love the
Thank
way
you.
you've brought your passion and love and respect for your culture, for your grandparents, and keeping it alive and bringing respect to the other seniors or middle-aged people that have still got so much to give, and keeping the tradition alive, but giving them a purpose to share
Mm,
beyond. And I think that
mm.
is truly a gift, not only to us, but also to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. That's very beautiful of you to say. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, the two different sites that they can go to for
Yep.
these experience.
So for a taste of Italian culture, you can visit experience dash ASSAGGIO.com. And then you'll find the grandparents, you can meet them, and you'll also find the collection of all of the traditions as well that you can access online. And then we've got the in-person experiences, so Vera Italia, which is true Italy. For a true taste of Italy, you can come to Vera, VERA italia.it, and there you'll find a lot of people that are eager and waiting for you to come and visit and share their traditions and culture with you as well. And you can also browse by all of the experiences that they have to offer as well. So we look forward to seeing you online or in Italy.
And of course, you're on Facebook, Vera Italia
Yes.
Experience, and Instagram, Vera Italia. And so you can come and see for yourself. On the show
Exactly.
posting here, there's a gorgeous picture of her here with her Nonnies. And it's just like the picture is just pure joy, pure joy. And, that's
You know,
the beauty of it, isn't it?
it was so funny. I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, that photo we actually took, we were just at my house and my parents were out and I was with my two grandmothers at home one night and we were just hanging out. We were just like cooking and we had dinner together and I think I was I think I was in the middle of cooking or we were in the middle of doing something and I just was like, oh, I just like I'm loving this moment so much because it was one of the rare moments that I had both of my grandmothers just all to myself and like there was no one else and it was just us and usually I spend quality time with them one on one but the fact that they were both there and there was no
Yeah.
one else there, it was so nice. And I was like, oh, I just want to document this moment. This was well before like Assaggio came about, so it is such a pure and like raw moment that we had. And I was like even in like my like sweatpants and stuff, but it's just like become like such a beautiful like photo and such a beautiful symbol of it's like it's just so like authentic and pure. And it's, I was saying before as well, it's for me it's so beautiful seeing like, news articles and seeing like the story being shared and having that photo of me and my two grandmothers who are the people that have just instilled this love of culture and on the Italian culture specifically and just be able to share a part of them and a part of my experience with others.
They're the catalyst to what you're doing, right?
Yes,
They were the
definitely.
seeding of it all. So, your immersement into their culture and who they are and what they brought to you. You wanted to expand that experience and bring it to other people.
Absolutely.
Now, you can find both of her shows by just putting her name in the search engine here at selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Going to spell her name again for you. It's Chiara Barbera. And if you put in her name, Chiara Barbera, you will see both of her shows will come up. Please listen to them. Please share them. Please look into this whole thing because it quite honestly, it's we are saying to people right now, don't go into the States for obvious reasons. And it's a time to Europe is calling, kind of go and get some culture that has been around for thousands of years. And
Mhm.
like kind of feel the roots of tradition that have stood the test of time and that need to be carried on, however
And come to the
modernized we get.
places that aren't come to the places that aren't fluctuating with tourists. Come to the places where they
Yes.
actually need your support. They need you to come
Yeah.
and spend your money here to make sure that they can thrive and survive as well.
Exactly. It keeps their town alive. It keeps their traditions alive. It gives you an experience that will live with you forever. And, it's a win-win situation all the way. So, a wonderful
Absolutely.
experience to be had. Be folks, really coffee today. Um, but I'm so glad we've done these shows. It's just, really magnificent the work that you're doing, the passion and the love in which you're doing it with. And quite honestly, when people love what they're doing, they're sharing the love. And the fact that you've done it in a way where you're honoring, your historical roots and your traditions and sharing it in such simple ways is really, really quite beautiful. And so thank you for thinking it up and bringing to the table the love that is created through delicious food and how it can bring love to anybody's table that decides to cook along with Nona's.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you and being able to share my story. So I'm really grateful for the time, and I'm grateful to anyone who's listening to this as well. Thank you for listening.
Please pass the show on, please.
Mm,
You make, oh, I'd love to go to Italy, but I can't. But I know somebody that would love to go to this. So
yes,
send them both of the shows. You'll see links on both show pages that lead to both shows. And just, start planting the seeds about, hey mate, how about we do it together? Right?
yes, absolutely. That
It's
would be very helpful.
yeah,
Also,
and
because I'm trying not to do the social media route. I'm trying to really like connect with people that want that genuine connection as well. So by doing that, I thought, well, we need to kind of spread the word through people. Like we
yeah.
can't spread it through just social media. So yes, that would be a massive help. And yes, I would be very grateful if you could share it with just like 2 or 5 people that that would just be amazing.
Going off to a cheese place, a wine place, this place, sitting at the table with authentic people in the humble humility, what a wonderful experience to have. So, grab a girlfriend, grab your partner, grab your loved one and just say, let's go and do this
Or come by
together.
yourself,
Come by
whatever.
yourself. Yes.
Yes.
And you're guaranteed will meet people. So,
Mhm.
this is the whole thing. It's about inclusivity, right?
Yes,
And the experience, I guarantee you, will stay with you forever. I promise you it will. So
absolutely.
thank you so much, love. It's wonderful to have you
Thank
back
you.
here again. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm going to be sharing these shows with my daughter because she's the travel bug, and I can see that she's already said, I want to know more about it. So you'll
Oh,
probably see her in Italy. Um,
that sounds wonderful.
But in the meantime, if you can't actually get to Italy, you can have Italy come to you through these wonderful recipes. And the whole thing about them is they're not expensive. That's the beauty. You're not looking at five-star Michelin expensive food. You're looking at humble ingredients that are easy to find and just absolutely feed you in every single way and really open
Yeah.
up to that conversation, which is what we want you to have. So
Yes.
thank you so much, darling, and to everyone else
Thank
out
you.
there. Um, Immerse yourself into other cultures because when you do that, you understand there's so much more to life than just your own little world. And boy, when we open up, that's when we truly see what humanity and life is all about. So until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.